raise hand if you would like to speak. Well, like we said the last meeting. I'm welcoming you to meeting number 3 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Official Languages. So today's meeting, it's taking place in a hybrid format in public. We will be discussing committee business. But à cause du retard avec les votes.
But because of the delay due to the votes, I wanted to let you know that if there is consent, we can work until 5:45 only. Unfortunately, no later, because people have other committees, or rather this room has been pre-booked for other committees. So that's how we will...
Monsieur le Président.
Oui, Monsieur Williamson.
Now, vous avez besoin du consentement.
Mr. Williamson, you need unanimous consent for that? Yes, absolutely. No, I can't provide unanimous consent. I have other committees tonight. Yeah, so I can't provide unanimous. Okay, all right. Thank you, colleagues. So we have until 5:30. And one other point of order. To raise our hands, do we do it physically like that by raising our hands, or do we do that on the computer screen? Under that participants section there, Mr. Blaney's currently, I don't know if he's flying or if he's raising his hand. I'm not sure what he's doing exactly. The raise hands function. Okay, as you can imagine, there are members in the house, in the room rather, so I can't see them, so it's preferable to proceed that way. I did see the raised hand. Mr. Blaney had raised his hand.
Read all of the information concerning the COVID pandemic. We did that last session, and you already received an email concerning that. But let me just tell you that today the clerk is Mrs. Christine Lafrance, who she's there to help us. But what I would like to say in introduction, this is our third meeting. So third business committee meeting. So moi, idéalement,
ideally, I would like us to be able to work so as to set up our work plan for the next sitting that we will have. So we have studies, there are things that have been proposed. What I will do is that I will set aside the last 15 minutes so that we can clearly establish our strategy for the next meeting. Because I think all members would be in agreement to say that after 3 committee business meetings, it is good to actually start in earnest. I'll tell you about the current situation, but if at the end of this sitting we have not concluded or completely finished dealing with the motions that we are seized with, then the committee will decide on what it wants to do, whether it will move to a subcommittee format or come back as a full committee. In fact, today, why do we have a committee business meeting? Well, you received an email to explain that to you, but let me say this. So, at the last meeting, we had said that we wanted to invite the commissioner. And right after that meeting that was held last week, the clerk made arrangements to contact the official languages commissioner so the commissioner could appear before us. Unfortunately, the commissioner is not available to appear today, and there was no other way to proceed. So we thought, okay, well, let's come back with committee business so that we can move ahead as fast as possible. What do we have on the table right now? Let me tell you. First, last week, we passed 3 motions. Lambropoulos motion on education, Madame Latanzio on the pandemic, Mr. Blaney's on the commissioner that he wanted to hear from before November 24th. So those three motions were passed. We have received 5 notices of motions from the last meeting. Blaney's motion to invite the minister on the budget, second motion to have it be televised, and third one having to do with the pandemic, and Mr. Beaulieu on motion on We Charity, and a motion on French in Quebec, if I can summarize. So we're talking about 8 motions. Aside from that, we've received 3 other motions, including one from Mr. Beaulieu on French, one from Ms. Ashton on modernization of the Official Languages Act, and a third from Madame Lalonde on the official languages. And then 2 other motions. We said we need 48 hours notice. So Mr. Blaney's motion referring to the commissioner on November 29th, and also inviting the minister to appear. And finally, there's the issue of the main estimates, as they say. So we have to discuss this as well. So all in all, we have 13 motions, 3 of which have passed. So at the last meeting, we had Mr. Beaulieu, who was speaking. I propose this. Mr. Blaney's motion regarding the commissioner. The motion that he had tabled initially referred to November 24th at the latest. We made arrangements and contacted the office, and today we received an email from the office, and he says that ideally he would prefer to be available the week after the 24th of November. In other words, the week of the 24th, if we do meet on that Thursday. We postponed, we pushed a little bit on that one. We pushed back, and then he did say that he would be maybe available perhaps to meet with us during the break week or constituency week. So I'd like us to discuss this option because it is a motion that was passed. And then we'll be able to debate the other motions. Would that work for committee members?
Oui. D'accord.
Yes, okay. Based on the list I have here before me, I see Mr. Blaney. You have the floor. Go ahead, Mr. Blaney. Mr. Chairman, essentially, I think it's pragmatic. Yes, we are impatient to hear from the Official Languages Commissioner. The spirit of the motion is to hear from this individual as soon as possible. We've already met over break weeks. Given the fact that we're only meeting once, I think that's fine. It's great. In fact, we don't have much time. We have just 1 hour to get through this. So I support what you're saying. That'll be our first activity for the agenda. And I hope in the last 15 minutes we'll be in a position to draw up a work plan. Thank you very much. I was looking for the email to tell you specifically this, that the commissioner is available on Friday the 13th of November from 10:30 to noon or after 2 p.m. So it's up to us to make that decision. Perfect. So Madam Ashton, Ms. Ashton, you have the floor. Ms. Ashton. Unfortunately, Ms. Ashton's sound is cutting out. So the interpreters actually heard a few words, but nothing too clear. Excellent, says the chair. Mr. Arsenault, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try to speak slowly because apparently there's people are having a hard time hearing me. Can you hear me? The interpreter can hear the member, but unfortunately the sound is not excellent, but workable. Marie-France seems to hear me fine, so it must be an issue with relating to individuals' hearing. I may be out of order, Mr. Chairman. You were referring to subcommittees. Last week you advised us of the fact that there was no room for a subcommittee meeting. If we were to have an official subcommittee meeting, that it would mean taking time away from the full committee time. I'd like an update on that. Is there some way of doing things, some kind of agreement among party members to meet outside of these times, even if it's unofficially, so that we can, plan our motions, save some time and prepare? Because as you say, we don't have that much time to have these debates. And the subcommittee listen, I'm wondering if there is some way legally for us to meet outside of these hours, just amongst ourselves in the context of a subcommittee. Okay, well, as was indicated, and I had discussions with the clerk, given the pandemic, if there are dates that are disclosed for subcommittee meetings, and from Monday to Friday, we have to choose based on those dates. For the time being, the new calendar has not been presented to us, so we don't know, we can't reserve a spot for that subcommittee. So if we can't have a specific time for that subcommittee, then we'll have to move to a committee. And that's why we took that approach. No way for us to meet over a Zoom chat among the representatives of the party? It's not just the party representatives, because there's also staff that's with us for these meetings, during these subcommittee meetings. And then we have to come back to the committee, or the subcommittee has to report to the committee in order to get the committee's support. So, believe me, the clerk is doing everything she can. We are really on top of things. As soon as the agenda comes out, right away, we will set up reserve a spot so that we can have a subcommittee meeting. Thank you, Mr. Arsenault. Mr. Beaulieu? Mr. Beaulieu is asking for the floor. Actually, if we'd wanted to have a subcommittee meeting, we could have met at 3:30 and then have the subcommittee right after. Even if there is staff, everybody could attend by Zoom. Do we have to be there in person for the subcommittee meeting? Could you repeat what you were saying? Sorry. So let's say Madam Clerk, the analyst, and all these other people that support the committee, could they be there by Zoom? That would make things easier. If they could be there virtually, themselves too. Or do you absolutely need the room, the site? I would say that the issue of this room is not so much the issue, but the availability of the staff and of all of us. Madam Clerk, can you tell us a little bit about your perspective on this, Madame Lafrance? At this point, says the clerk, the resources are limited. Committees have been urged to use their given time slot to hold subcommittee meetings during that time slot if they wanted a subcommittee meeting. That said, there are some availabilities that may open up, and that we'd have to check based on the calendar. If the subcommittee wants to meet, the general rule is that it should do so during that time frame that has already been granted for the committee. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. As I was saying, I'd like us to agree. Sorry, I have Madame Lalonde who would like to speak. Go ahead, Madame Lalonde. I'd like a bit of clarification about the commissioner, his availability, November 13th, that Friday. Can you tell us what his availability would be? And then I could perhaps address what I'm hearing from Mr. Beaulieu and Mr. Arsenault. I really hadn't understood, Madam Clerk, what the options were for the commissioner and what is physically available to us on the 13th for a potential committee during the break week. Okay, well, in the meantime, as I said, in the email we received today, we hear that November 13th, the commissioner is available from 10:30 to noon and after 2 p.m. Madam Clerk, are you aware of the room availability, the equipment being available on that date? If that were the case, if the committee were to choose that date to meet with the commissioner, I can check, Mr. Chairman. Excellent. Okay. I would suggest this. If we were to say that meeting would happen during the break week, November 13th break week, does the committee agree to say yes to meeting with the commissioner on that date? Is there any objection to this? If you have an objection, please raise your hand. Ms. Lalonde? No? Sorry, I think my hand was still up from earlier. Okay, great. So if I understand correctly, we all are in agreement to hear from the commissioner on November 13th. And then we just have to set the time. I think it would be more likely that we could meet him at 2 p.m. I suggest the following. Let's leave that in the hands of the clerk, and as soon as possible, she will send us a notice of meeting for that day, November 13th, that Friday. Is there any objection to that? Go ahead, Marie-France. Is the clerk aware? I mean, can she tell us about the room availability? I'm sorry, Madame La France, to ask you this point blank like this. I wish I could tell you what the future holds, Madame Lalonde, but I just sent the message out. And they will be checking with the committee's directorate. Thank you. I don't have an answer for you today. Very well. Okay. So here we are. What should be said is that we just clarified that November 13th, there will be a meeting. But there's also next week. We will certainly be meeting. So we will do what is required today to set what will be happening next week's meeting. This is why I'd like to have those last 15 minutes of our meeting set aside if we don't have an agreement yet, so that we know straight away, what will happen for the next meeting. What study we want to start rather than just go back to subcommittee or committee business. It will be up to the members to decide. Okay, I think I've taken a look at the situation, and I would say we still have, 10 motions, in fact, and the main estimates. if we want to study that, we have to table it before the 27th of November. So I will hand over the floor, as was indicated at the last meeting, to Mr. Beaulieu, who has the mic. Mr. Beaulieu, you have a couple of motions.
On vous écoute.
There's a motion that we had started to discuss. Are we going to continue discussing that motion? It was dealing with the We Charity file, Uni in French. If not, I have another motion that I've amended. I hadn't yet tabled it. It's the second motion that is the right one. Listen, having checked with the clerk, I'm told that the motions that were not adopted are all to be treated as notices of motion. So you have the floor, and it's up to you to decide which motion you wish to discuss with committee members. Now, there's the first motion that we had begun to discuss, dealing with the We Charity file, and there's a second motion. It's the one that you have just received that was amended. The other motion, I won't be tabling it. There are two that are very similar, virtually identical, and it's the second one that I've retained. I don't know if the clerk has received it, if she could confirm that. Well, listen, just to clarify things, the second motion deals with French in Quebec, but I've amended it to also cover Francophone and Acadian communities and English in Quebec. As I stated, you're free to choose the motion you want to put forward. So if I understand correctly, you want to begin with the motion dealing with We Charity. But at the same time, there are these 8 motions that we looked at that sometimes overlap. And perhaps we could merge some of them or separate some. So you want me to present the second motion? It's up to you to decide. Very well. The first one, I've already presented it. It's just with regard to the procedure to be followed. Perhaps the clerk could enlighten me. Do I present the two at the same time? Do I begin with the first one and then we move to the second? No, it's one motion at a time, one at a time. Yes, indeed. So my motion with regard to the We file, I've already presented it. It was to establish a committee rather than having special committees to study this file, rather than having it studied by various committees. The idea was to have one single central committee, and the Official Languages Committee would recommend to the House the creation of a special committee charged with holding hearings to examine all of the aspects of the Canadian subsidy for students, the Canada Students Grant, also dealing with the measures provided in order to avoid conflicts of interest, also with regard to all of the expenditures of the government and the We Charity, the decision of the government to have chosen We Charity, a unilingual Anglophone organization, to deal with managing the grant. So the idea was that this committee be made up of 11 MPs, 4 from the official opposition, 1 from the Bloc Québécois, and 1 from the NDP, the others be Liberals, and that this work be undertaken as soon as it is tabled with the whip. I could read the rest of the text to you, but that's the purpose. The idea is to create a special committee that would be reviewing all of the work of the committees covering these files having to do with the Canada Student Grant and We Charity's involvement. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Beaulieu. The interpreters didn't have the text of this motion. Apologies. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like us to have an effective meeting. We know the positions of the various political parties, and I'm open-minded, but I would like us to come to a vote as quickly as possible in order to deal with committee business. My aim is really that we establish our roadmap, our plan for the committee. We have one meeting planned. But the second motion, Mr. Beaulieu, dealing with the study of the French language, we saw this in the speech from the throne. There was consensus around that. I think we have a wonderful motion to guide us through our work. I'll stop there because I feel like talking about other motions rather than the We Charity one. I would like to see us move forward with the committee's business and establish a roadmap for the future. Thank you, Mr. Blaney. Ms. Latancio? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, my intervention would be to ask if this motion is admissible. Let me explain. We know that the same motion was put forward in several committees, and the only aspect that is changing here, I would say, is the preamble. In other words, it was modified in order to fit within a committee's business, be it the Finance Committee, the Ethics Committee, the Official Languages Committee. I can tell you with certainty that I've seen this motion because it went through the Ethics Committee that I sit on, and it's just the preamble that has changed. Given that this motion has already been studied by one committee, I fail to see how it can be reintroduced before this committee, and for several reasons. The first one being that there is already a decision that's been made. A position was adopted vis-à-vis this motion. Secondly, if every committee makes changes to it, the result will be different for each committee, and then what do we do with that situation? Thirdly, to my mind, this motion is before a Senate committee, so it's always the same motion that keeps coming back. So I would submit to you, Mr. Chairman, that I believe you will have to assess the situation and determine if this motion is admissible, because the Official Languages Committee, well, I'm wondering if this motion fits into its mandate, the scope of the Official Languages Committee in its mandate. So I put the question to you, Mr. Chairman, and ask you to decide. Thank you. Well, listen, I'm going to address committee members by saying that I've had exchanges with officials, namely with the clerk, and this motion is problematic, and I'll outline why. Based on the rules, if, as it is indicated, 182 of the rules says that standing committees are authorized to undertake studies and present reports on all matters relating to their mandate, to the administration, and to the workings of the departments they're responsible for. And 1082F, which really has an impact on our committee's mandate, states that the mandate of the Official Languages Committee includes, among other things, the study of the policies and programs for official languages, including annual reports of the Commissioner for Official Languages, which are deemed to be referred to the committee as soon as they are tabled, and the presentation of reports in these matters. And finally, the procedure and the usages of the House of Commons outline that, as is the case for all other authorities and powers of standing committees, the authority to table reports is limited to the issues corresponding to their mandate. So, Mr. Beaulieu, based on that reading of the standing orders, that is my decision based on the motion you've put forward pertaining to We Charity. So, before moving to other members on my speakers list, I would like to ask Mr. Beaulieu what his reaction is to the decision I have just outlined. Well, I would say that this does belong to the mandate of the committee. It pertains directly to it because we would be dealing with official languages vis-à-vis We Charity. What we're proposing is that there be one central committee, and I believe that the committee could make this suggestion. I don't see why it couldn't suggest that. Based on what Mr. Blaney was saying, maybe the idea was to move as quickly as possible to a vote on this. But you're saying that it is not admissible. Indeed. It is my decision. I'm saying that it is not admissible because, indeed, the idea would be to recommend to the House that it intervene, whereas our official mandate, based on Standing Orders 1082 and 1083, well, our mandate is clear. We must report on this and not make recommendations per se. Might we vote on that? Well, listen, what I can say directly is this. I'm saying that, for example, this decision or this motion is not admissible. What you could do, Mr. Beaulieu, is challenge the chair's decision, and in that case, the committee would have to vote on that decision, on the decision made by the chair, and based on what happens, we would move on to other motions, and we could vote on that motion. Perfect. In that case, I'm challenging your decision with all due respect, Mr. Chairman. Very well. So before moving any further, I would like to hear 4 people I have on my list before moving on to anything else. Madame Latancio. No. Your Honor. Sorry. I intervened earlier, so I'm putting my hand down. Apologies. Very well. So yes, it's debatable. And now I have Mr. Arsenault. On a point of order, I will call upon the clerk once you've intervened. Point of order, Mr. Chairman? I don't believe that this is debatable, this motion. He is challenging the chair, so it's not a motion that's debatable. We vote on it. Very well. Calling upon the clerk. You are perfectly right, Mr. Williamson. This challenge of the chair, as the clerk has just outlined to me, is not debatable. So, that being the case, we must now move to the vote on this decision that I've just made. So would the clerk please proceed with the vote? And we're voting to determine what is going to happen. There has been a challenge to the chair, and we would like to know which members are for and which are against this challenge. So the motion is as follows, that the decision of the chair be maintained, sustained. Mr. Arsenault. Forgive me? Could you please repeat the question? I heard the opposite. Repeat the motion first, please. Yes, the motion would read as follows, that the decision of the chair be maintained. I didn't hear your vote, Mr. Arsenault. Mr. Arsenault says yes. Mr. Duguid, qui vote pour le maintien?
Oui.
Yes. Madame Lampropoulos, yes. Madame Lantasio? Yes. Mr. Blaney? I have great respect for the chairman, but I must recognize that in the case of the We Charity, Francophones were neglected, so I don't approve the decision of our chair in this instance, so I vote no. Mr. Dalton, no. Mr. Généreux? No. Mr. Williamson? I too vote no. Mr. Beaulieu? No.
Avec tout le respect,
With all due respect to the chair, I vote no.
Mr. Chair, 5 yeas, 6 nays. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So the motion is defeated. We therefore have Mr. Beaulieu's motion before us on We Charity. It is on the table at the moment. So the debate may resume. But first, I have 4 names on my speaking list, and many more. Mr. Duguid?
Mr. Chair, I will have more to say, but and this is more in the way of a point of order. With some of our speakers, I am hearing both official languages at the same time, and so it does make a difference on what channel they put themselves on. I'm hearing you perfectly, Mr. Chair, but Mr. Latanzio, for instance, I was hearing both languages at the same time. I believe my Zoom is updated, and so I don't think the problem is at my end, but of course I will check after our meeting. And Mr. Chair, I'm ready for what I think will be a long debate, unfortunately, on this matter that has been talked to death on the floor in various committees. And I think it's really unfortunate that we're not able to get on with the important businesses of protecting both official languages in this.
Thank you, Mr. Duguid.
Merci, Monsieur Duguid. Alors, j'aimerais vous indiquer que
Verify with people there if there is a problem, you know? Okay, so next one is Mr. Généreux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope you can hear me well. A number of times over the past few years, we were told by the Minister of Official Languages, Ms. Mélanie Joly, that the committee was independent. We've been told that more than once. I respect her position, that is, that the committee is independent and can decide what to debate and what to fight for. And I sincerely believe that despite the fact that we can't debate this issue since Parliament resumed, we have the opportunity to once and for all find out what happened. I'd like to remind you that it's a contract of nearly $1 million where Francophones were completely forgotten. I believe that the government of whatever stripe must be accountable to Parliament. We must ensure that something like this does not happen ever again. So as a parliamentarian within a committee, sitting on a committee such as the Committee of Official Languages, it's our duty to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Overlooking this and not debating it goes against the very spirit of what we all are, and that is representatives of our respective regions and parliamentarians. I really believe we should get to the bottom of this so that it never happens again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope we'll be able to vote on this as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Généreux. I have Ms. Lambropoulos on my list. And may I say right after, it will be Ms. Latanzio, Ms. Ashton, and Ms. Lalonde. Ms. Lambropoulos, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During our last meeting, we discussed the We Charity issue. We talked about it for 2 hours. On our end, we explained why we didn't think it was a study we should conduct at this committee. And I'm from Montreal, I'm a teacher, and I have experience, personal experience within Quebec with the We Charity, which worked with my students to build a bridge in a third world country. The fact that it's not for Quebecers is not true. It's an organization that exists in Quebec as well. It also has a French name. It held a conference in Montreal with hundreds of people in attendance, and it was entirely held in French. I repeated this point numerous times. I know that perhaps the members of the opposition don't have experience with We Charity or Uni in French, and I know that nobody here has worked with young people in the past. I have. So with all the experience I have with this organization, I can tell you
that has worked in both the French sector and the English sector and across the province of Quebec. In Montreal, as I mentioned, they only had French speakers. It's actually public information. You can go and check their Facebook page, and you can watch a 3-hour-long conference that took place in French with French music and French everything. Every single person who attended.
Point d'ordre, Monsieur le Président.
Oui, allez-y.
Point of order. Yes, go ahead. As the member stated, she already mentioned that. This is the second or third time. So that's great, but we have very limited time. We have a lot of things to cover. So I would suggest that all members to go through everything much more quickly. And I'm also a teacher, just to make that point. So please, if we can move on. Mr. Dalton, thank you. This is not a point of order. I believe all members may say what they have to say. We are currently debating the motion. It's not the first meeting, but we all agree that we want to get to a time frame and a work plan. And I want to make sure we have something in place for the next meeting. So, Ms. Lambropoulos, you have the chance to finish your intervention.
Mr. Chair, and to Mr. Dalton, I appreciate the fact that you were a teacher, but you're not a teacher in Quebec. And so with my experience in Quebec and in French immersion schools, English schools that are French immersion, I've dealt with the organization in French, and that is the point being discussed. Therefore, I think it's a very relevant point, probably one of the most relevant that we'll hear, no offense, but just given the experience that I've had working with them personally. And as I mentioned, on their Facebook page, you can check out Uni on Facebook, and you can see their 3-hour-long conference that took place that was purely in French, that was to help French youth get involved. So the argument that this is an only Anglophone organization that does not do anything in French, that does not reach the French population, is not a good one because it's false.
Merci, Madame Lambropoulos.
Thank you, Ms. Lambropoulos. On my list, I have Ms. Latanzio, Ms. Ashton, Mr. Lalonde, and Mr. Beaulieu. Ms. Lattanzio, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I read my colleague's motion. It is a fairly long one. I was wondering whether it would be possible to look at the portions of the motion that deal only with what is relevant to the committee. As I said earlier, the same motion was presented in various committees, and since your decision was overturned, and now this is relevant to the committee, perhaps Mr. Beaulieu could tell us in which paragraph specifically we can find the points that would be very relevant to this committee. And then I'll see what we can do after that. So could he tell us specifically which points come under this committee's purview? And I'd like to respond afterwards. Thank you. Ms. Lattanzio, thank you. Mr. Généreux, you have the floor. Earlier, actually, I already spoke earlier, but I can add that after Ms. Lambropoulos' comments, I can add that she perhaps had francophone experiences in French in Montreal with We Charity, but let's give them the opportunity to appear to explain what kind of activities they have. I had never heard of We Charity, of Uni, before then. I think we have an opportunity to look at how they handled this issue so that we can make sure that programs are provided in both French and in English throughout the country, not just in Quebec, but throughout the country. So that's what I wanted to add for now. Thank you, Mr. Généreux. Ms. Ashton.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je veux...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to repeat a request made by other colleagues, that is to move to a vote as quickly as possible. We have many other motions to discuss. I think we've heard perspectives from all sides. Thank you.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Ms. Ashton. And I have Ms. Lalonde on my list.
Merci, Monsieur le...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Listen, I'll be quite frank. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed because when I arrived at this committee, I was told that the committee did serious work. That is, official languages were discussed. We were going to move forward with issues that would demonstrate our collective commitment to promoting the official languages. Mr. Beaulieu, with all the respect due to you, you had other motions that could have furthered these efforts and would be part of what I would have liked to work on with you. For example, promoting minority languages outside Quebec, within Quebec, which is English in that case, and to work together. We could have made sure. Well, my colleagues, despite the fact that our chair is telling us that this motion is out of order, well, his decision was overturned. That's a democratic choice he made, dear colleagues. But I'm very disappointed with this avenue you've decided to go down. We've dealt with this issue in a number of committees throughout the summer. There were a number of discussions in the House on this very issue. You have been able to talk about how you feel about the government's decision to go forward with a contract with We Charity. When I speak with the people of Orléans, which, by the way, Mr. Généreux, is the most beautiful community in Canada, people are talking about the pandemic. about health, about education. People call me every day because their business has had to shut down or is about to shut down. And this motion that you present to us, Mr. Beaulieu, that you want to debate on this Thursday, really makes me think about what it means for me to be a parliamentarian within this committee, which is supposed to be here to promote official languages. I don't really know what to say here. You are saying that you're the first to want to bring together a working group and so on. I think you know how we'll handle this issue, what we'll say, and I had the opportunity during the summer to share my arguments, but the worst in this committee is that this whole motion, Mr. Beaulieu's motion, once again, it's a fishing expedition through various departments, various ministers. We know that French is losing ground throughout the country. We know that's happening. We know that there are challenges that the Anglophone community is facing in Quebec. We had the opportunity today to get rid of partisanship, move forward. But unfortunately, dear colleagues, you found a way to bring this right back to this committee, which did not have that in the past. We were able to move beyond that as parliamentarians because we firmly believe that our languages, that the Official Languages Act at this committee.
Point of order. Yes, Mr. Dalton. Really, it's your responsibility, Chair, to control the debate. We have limited time. It's really your responsibility to control how long a person speaks. They can't go on for 5-10 minutes. We just don't have that amount of time. I would like us to vote on this, please. No, I was just going to reply to Mr. Dalton regarding his point of order. As I said earlier, we are debating the motion. So long as the subjects have to do with the motion, members have the right to speak. I would remind you that I have 5 people who are currently on the list. It is already 5 p.m. And as I asked, I said at 5:15, I will be stopping the meeting so that we can decide what we'll be doing at our next meeting. So, Madame Lalonde, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. Mr. Dalton, I understand why you're so impatient, but I have a right to speak like any other member. I have the right to speak to the motion that your colleague, Mr. Beaulieu, tabled today. And I'm going to share this because I'm disappointed, as I've said, and to even hear Mr. Dalton say he wants to move to a vote. Well, listen, there were 10 motions we could have discussed today. We probably could have started work, Mr. Blaney, on some issues that we all considered important. Ms. Lantazio had a really great motion. Let's get back to Mr. Beaulieu's motion. I would like to perhaps share this, that the thing I'm most hurt by in all of this is that the penalty really was felt by those students. Not one student was able to get the government's support in this sense. I think that was part of your commitment. Your caucus also committed to help Canadian students over the summer and for the weeks to come. Despite the fact that the government did many other things, this was an opportunity that was actually a missed opportunity. Why? For partisan reasons, I'll remind you, dear colleagues. And here we are now on a fishing expedition for a scandal that never existed. We all agree that contract was never honored, first thing. And those who suffered the most were the students. And as I said, colleagues, every day in my riding office, people call us to talk about health, and safety for Canadians through this pandemic. And these students going to school, we're also talking about business people who need help. We're here just arguing over a motion that has nothing to do, first of all, with our committee, and second, really, is partisan. It's just shocking to see that after a full summer, we are still discussing this very motion. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I had to share that with you. Thank you. Thank you, Madame Lalonde. Mr. Beaulieu, you have the floor. Mr. Beaulieu, yes. I'd like to ask for the vote, but if I'm correct, we're not allowed to ask for the vote. So if we don't agree with the motion, we'll just keep talking and talking and talking. Is that right? How beautiful democracy is, says Mr. Beaulieu. That's all I had to say. You know, I think everybody is ready to vote. Let's vote. Let's move to something else. Okay, next person on the list. I replied to Mr. Dalton earlier. The same applies. In a committee, there's a motion before the committee. So long as a member wants to speak about the motion, the member has the right to do so. So there you have it. It's 5:05. There are 4 more people who want to speak. Mr. Digweed, we hope we'll be able to hear from everyone to make a decision. And at 5:15, I'm stopping. Mr. DeWitt, you have the floor.
You do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
Monsieur Duguid,
Chair. And I would just repeat what some of my colleagues have said. This is.
Go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yeah, but it's not so clear. But if the technician said that it's okay, so you can go on.
Can the interpreters hear me, Mr. Chair? If
Madame la greffière, pouvez-vous vérifier, s'il vous plaît, rapidement avec les techniciens?
Madam Clerk, can you check quickly with the people, the technicians?
Les interprètes ne peuvent pas interpréter.
Point d'ordre, Monsieur le Président.
Oui, allez-y, Monsieur Arsenault.
Je veux pas prendre...
Mr. Arsenault, yes? Listen, when that happens, I would suggest to my colleagues that perhaps he should turn off his camera. It takes a lot less data, and then we could hear what he actually says. I mean, if everyone's fine with not seeing Mr. Digweed's face, without the camera, the audio becomes much more fluid. Mr. Digweed, you can try another time, and if not, until that gets fixed, we'll have to continue with the next person on the list. Last time, Mr. Digweed, give it a shot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully, I'm much better looking when I'm not seen. But I would just like to reiterate what some of my colleagues have already said, that we're wasting time, Mr. Chair. We have no time to waste. I am very proud that 17% of my population in Winnipeg South, 17% is bilingual, 5% French is the first language. But a number of us received a fabulous presentation the other day, Mr. Chair, that the French language is declining, particularly in Western Canada. And we need to get to work to find solutions to reinforce the Official Languages Act, which we are going to review shortly. And Mr. Speaker, I was reading in my local newspaper this morning, which I know Ms. Ashton reads regularly, that because of the pandemic, we have a shortage of French immersion and Francophone teachers, that classes have been canceled, classes have not been able to start in some cases, Mr. Chair. And in Western Canada, and I hope some of our Conservative friends will speak with Premier Kenney, who is defunding Campus Saint Jean, which is very, very important to keep the French language alive in that province. So we have some big challenges ahead of us, Mr. Chair, particularly in Western Canada, where I come from. So again, I appeal to Ms. Ashton particularly, and may I say I am disappointed, like Marie-France Lalonde, that right out the get-go, the chair is challenged. Our committee is going to be likely rife with dysfunction. Really an unfortunate way to start when there are many good motions on the table from all sides of the House. I urge my colleagues, let's work together and let's get something done for the official languages of this country.
Merci, Madame Lambropoulos, Monsieur Arsenault.
Lambropoulos, Latanzio, Mr. Dalton, among others. Ms. Lambropoulos, yes. Yes, because Mr. Généreux raised the issue that although I had experience with We Charity, that somehow that they should have an opportunity to appear before the committee. That's not the commission. That's not the motion that's before us, though. It has nothing to do with that. I wouldn't mind in another context, in another study, to hear from We Charity. That's not what we're even voting on, Mr. Généreux. Perhaps we should reread the motion before we move to a vote to be sure that we know what we're doing today. I just wanted to raise this issue. And again, there are 400 schools in the province of Quebec that have already worked with We Charity, 948 teachers, Francophone and Anglophone teachers have worked with We Charity in Quebec. Again, I'm repeating this same point, and I've said it before. When the Conservatives raised the motion in the summer, they had to end up changing the motion because they got it that they were wrong. It was actually practically a lie to say that it only affects or it only covers one community, not both. I wanted to raise that issue again. Thank you. Mr. Arsenault, you have the floor. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, colleagues from all political parties making up this beautiful committee. My comments are for Mr. Beaulieu, Mr. Généreux, Mr. Blaney from Quebec, my Quebec colleagues. There is a serious decline in the French language in the province of Quebec. There was Mr. Beaulieu's motion that was very, very important on this subject. There was a will to hear about that, to hear this kind of repeat study. I mean, is that what we want? Is it really important for us to bring this motion in through the back door? Let's be honest. This is a motion that did not pass in the House of Commons. Is this for real? Is this serious? Is it more important than what's happening at the Campus Saint-Jean, the U of T, that we almost lost because of the Conservatives in the province of Ontario? The University of Toronto, the Conservative Party in Ottawa said nothing about that. Remember that. Now the Official Languages Committee, like almost 99% of the time, has been nonpartisan. Is this We Charity motion some hypothetical each issue for a company or for an organization that doesn't even really, is not even around anymore? It has to know whether it may have violated language rights in Canada. Is that a priority over everything else that's going on in this pandemic? The issue of instructions on medicine, drugs, instruction as to devices that were not well labeled in both official languages. Can you tell us if We Charity, that has been digested in so many committees, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it that Mr. Beaulieu's second motion, which I found really interesting because it had this, how can I put it? It was of really it struck us all, coast to coast to coast, and it was particularly interested in what's happening with the French language in Quebec, in the context of Quebec that also has both official languages. But above all else, I won't repeat what my colleague said about Mr. Généreux, but if people have not understood Mr. Beaulieu's motion, it's not saying that our committee, and this is my second point, Mr. Chairman, this motion for Mr. Beaulieu does not suggest that the committee, the Official Languages Committee, would address this issue. It's asking the House of Commons to accept the creation of another committee, a third committee, that would address it. And perhaps that's what my colleague Natenzia was asking. Would a standing committee that is permanent, like our committee, would that committee have the authority to create or ask the House of Commons for the creation of another committee? That's my first question. Do we have the authority? Do we have the jurisdiction? Mr. Arsenault? You'll have to excuse me. I'm going to have to put a stop to this and speak to all members of the committee because it is already 5:15 right now. I would like to know, is there agreement among members of the committee to work on what we will be focusing on, which is the next committee? What's on the table is that either we have a subcommittee at our next meeting or to address the motions, or that we meet again in the context of committee business to have a discussion of point of order.
Ou en fait,
Point d'ordre.
Oui, Monsieur Dalton, j'arrive. Enfin, la troisième possibilité, c'est de...
Finally, the third possibility is to say there are two motions that have already been carried, and the clerk must have the time needed to make the necessary arrangements for a meeting. So on your point of order, Mr. Dalton. Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move a motion to pursue our meeting until 6:30. We've wasted a lot of time, and we have a good number of motions that are very important. I agree with my colleagues from the other side, the Liberals. There are several motions before us. I also agree with regard to the we motion. It's just one motion, and we're not going to take weeks and months to debate this. It's just one motion. There are others here, but we must continue. So I would move that we continue with this meeting until 6:30. Mr. Williamson, or rather Mr. Dalton. Mr. Williamson, as I suggested at the beginning of the meeting, I did say that we could sit for a maximum of 15 minutes beyond 5:30, but this solution was not retained because we needed unanimous consent. Mr. Williamson was not able to sit beyond 5:30 given other responsibilities he has. So we already have a motion on the table. Point of order, Mr. Chairman? Yes. We can change that. We didn't decide. We didn't vote on ending the meeting at 5:30. We can continue if we vote on it. I had asked for unanimous consent, indeed. But Mr. Dalton, we can't have two motions at one and the same time. We have one motion and we have to decide its fate before we're moving on to anything else. What I'm asking for is the consent of all members of the committee so as to be able to devote the remaining 12 minutes of our meeting to clarify what will be done in our next meeting. So I'm asking the committee in its entirety, all members, if they're in agreement. Otherwise, we'll continue the debate with the motion on the table. So I'm asking all members of the committee, is there any objection as to devoting the next 12 minutes to prepare our next meeting, to give instructions to staff to prepare for the next meeting? If there is an objection, then raise your hands. There are several hands raised as it is. So do intervene to tell us if you disagree. Disagreement or in agreement with what, Mr. Chairman? Well, I'm asking the committee, can we devote the last 10 minutes we have to prepare our next meeting in order for the clerk to be able to make the necessary arrangements? Are you in agreement with this? If you'll allow me, Mr. Chairman, as vice chair of the committee, even if I didn't agree with your decision, I still place my trust in you. So I would suggest to members that we move to a subcommittee because it might work better if there are just 4 of us instead of 12. I think that we all agree that we want to move forward. I heard Mr. Arsenault. He was very sympathetic to Mr. Beaulieu's motion that hasn't yet passed. So perhaps as a subcommittee, with the agreement of the committee, we'll be able to come to an agreement on a plan. And if there are motions that we want to debate for hours on end, we'll be able to do it, but at least we'll have a roadmap and we'll be able to move forward and even have fun, might I say. Enjoy ourselves and move things forward. I heard important elements, the decline of the French language, etc. There are very valid motions we have before us, and I think the committee is impatient to move forward with this. This is why we would have liked to have had a subcommittee meeting before this meeting to come forward with recommendations in a report. You've understood that it wasn't possible because of internet issues. If we need an extra week to do this, well, let's do it, because we've already done overtime because we're going to have the Commissioner for Official Languages during break week. So that was my privilege as vice chair, so I'll turn the floor back to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Blaney. Indeed. But I want to ensure all members that if before the next meeting there is an available date for a subcommittee meeting, we will be the first to advise you of this so as to retain our usual meeting schedule. Are there any other interventions with regard to this proposal for a subcommittee? If we don't have any dates, it'll be the subcommittee. Any other interventions before going further? Those of you who have raised your hand, given that we're a little bit off topic, Ms. Latancio, Ms. Lambropoulos, perhaps you could put your hands down, and if you want to intervene on this matter, then you could indicate it by raising your hand. Ms. Latancio. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard Mr. Blaney, his remarks. I hope, Mr. Blaney, that you don't find us bothersome in wanting to intervene today. I know that you would prefer a subcommittee meeting, but please know that I, too, am impatient with regard to discussing these very interesting motions that have been put forward that we have before us. So I'm really anxious to be able to deal with them. Mr. Chairman, earlier, I asked for a clarification from Mr. Beaulieu with regard to which paragraph in his motion corresponds with the mandate of this committee, and I still have not received that clarification. So I'd ask that we ask him in order that I might better understand and intervene. Ms. Latancio, we moved on to something else. We're now discussing our next meeting, and perhaps that is why Mr. Beaulieu was unable to intervene. I have Mr. Beaulieu on my list now with regard to the next meeting. You have the floor, Mr. Beaulieu. If I understood correctly, you want us to set aside time to deal with the next meeting. Mr. Blaney proposed that we have a subcommittee meeting. That being the case, might we say, well, is there a meeting planned for next Thursday? Start with that. We'd have to check with the clerk. I don't yet have the date. I don't know if the calendar has come out yet. Might the clerk tell us what the situation is? Mr. Chairman, there is no calendar, no schedule for next week as of yet. Because, says Mr. Beaulieu, if there is a meeting next Thursday, we might start it off with the subcommittee if there is no other time slot available. Yes, it's a possibility, but we'll have to report to the committee right afterwards. It's a possibility, indeed. Just a question. For this evening, I had thought of this. In the end, I didn't ask for it, but we might have had a subcommittee meeting at 3:30. Well, because of the vote, it would have started later at 4 p.m., and then we could have had our regular meeting afterwards. And maybe we could have combined the two and cleared the way for the rest of our planning. Might have that been a possibility? Point of order. It depends on the circumstances, depending on the vote, etc. We always have to check with the availability of staff, etc. Ms. Lalonde, point of order. Go ahead. Yes, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to contradict yourself or the clerk, but based on the calendar, what I see for next week is, and it was shared with all parliamentarians, there would be a time slot for our committee on Thursday, the 5th of November. What I see is that the meeting could start at 3:30 next Thursday, based on the schedule I received. So I think it's been shared with all of you. Someone got this because I received it. So this was shared with us, and once again, I don't want to intrude, but I wanted to understand. I think this was approved by the clerks and the whip's office, our schedule for next week. So we have Thursday, the 5th of November, a meeting slotted in for 3:30. I've just received the same information. Very well. Well, listen, there's a lot of information coming in. I presume that if we're able to meet in the break week, perhaps next week there might be that possibility, indeed. But next Thursday, if we don't have a date for the subcommittee, this is what we're discussing. Next Thursday, how do you want us to proceed? Do we set aside half an hour or an hour for the subcommittee? And then we present the report to the committee and we move on to the regular meeting? I have Mr. Arsenault, who raised his hand, followed by Ms. Lambropoulos. Mr. Arsenault? Forgive me, Mr. Chairman. I've just removed my hands up. I'd forgot to do it. Ms. Lambropoulos, followed by Ms. Ashton. Well, with regard to this motion and all of the motions pertaining to studies that we will undertake on this committee, whatever the case may be, I think it's important that all members be present. I have a lot of things to say about this motion and others as well. And I would like to have the opportunity to express myself on these motions. Therefore, I am opposed to the idea of referring this to the subcommittee. And I would prefer that we pursue the conversation. I know that I don't sit on the subcommittee, but I believe that other members, on our side anyway, wish to intervene. We have a lot to say. So I don't think that this should be dealt with by the subcommittee and that we should pursue this conversation as a committee. For your information, the clerk has just confirmed that indeed next week we have a meeting slotted in at 3:30 next Thursday, the 5th of November. And I would also like to clarify that once the subcommittee sits, it will not be deciding for us. It's just going to be working to help our discussions move forward. But it's the committee that decides, that approves, that adopts motions as to the way forward. Ms. Ashton. Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to express my support to what you proposed. I think it's a very effective way of doing things. And I feel that we've wasted our time. This has been the case for several meetings already. It is important to have this debate, but we have subcommittees for a purpose. So let's use this mechanism to talk about the substance of the issues that are of concern to all of us. So I support what you've suggested, Mr. Chairman. My pleasure. A final intervention, that of Mr. Beaulieu. And my impression is that if there are no other dates before Thursday for the subcommittee, well, we will consider devoting the first hour to the subcommittee and the second hour to the committee proper next Thursday. Mr. Beaulieu? I agree with you, says Mr. Beaulieu. Thank you very much. So, colleagues, Madam Clerk, I've heard the wishes of the committee members. So once again, we are going to make the necessary arrangements to have a date for this subcommittee before Thursday. So watch your emails. If not, we'll see you next Thursday at 3:30. Let's set aside the first half hour or hour, depending. We don't know if there'll be votes for the subcommittee. And the mandate of the subcommittee will be to look at all of these motions. And all of these motions are notices of motion. So perhaps we could make suggestions to not table other motions, to merge some of them, in order to set up a calendar, in order for the committee to undertake its work as quickly as possible. So, to respect everyone's wishes, I know that some of you have other committees. This room is no longer going to be available. Mr. Williamson has a busy schedule, others as well. So once again, I wish to thank you all for this meeting. And I do hope that the next time we will be able to move forward and undertake our studies on an issue that we're all really interested in. Mr. Chairman?
S'il vous plaît.
Madam Clerk? Mr. Beaulieu, I didn't understand that somebody moved that the debate be adjourned. Ms. Lalonde. Oh, yes. Okay, so I don't know whether there's consent or if there's going to be a recorded vote. Here in the room, people are for on Zoom.
Pas de réaction non plus.
I'm not getting any hands or anything.
Voilà. Donc,
so, Madam Clerk? Well, now the meeting would have to be adjourned. Okay. Thank you. So if there are no objections, the meeting is therefore adjourned. I thank you and wish you a good evening. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the technicians, to the interpreters, to all who have contributed to this meeting. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Have a good evening.